Yeah, you can start.
Yes. So, very good evening, all. Thanks for your valuable time here and bearing with me for another 1 hour of time. So, without wasting further time, we'll move forward. Today's we will be discussing on the nature of problem solving. That's our first unit of fourth block of our cognitive technology. We will also cover the types of problems we used to undergo in an everyday life, characteristics of different problems, difficult problems, stages of problem solving, types of thinking involved in problem solving, and how cognition plays a role in that, and concept of insight problem solving. So as a definition, we say solving a problem means finding a way out of difficulty, a way around an obstacle, attaining an aim that was not immediately understandable. Solving problem is based is specific achievement of intelligence, and intelligence is a specific gift of mankind. So solving problems can be regarded as the most characteristically human activity. Here, this is as per George Polya. All right. Here I need to add on few of the informations like in problem there could be various varieties, a kind of recreational problems, career or school oriented problems, such as problems of how to get promoted or the problems of how to study for a test, or like my problem like how can I complete the assignment by giving it through somebody, so kind of issues. Similar way, personal problems can also be like problems whom to marry, whether to have a child or not, some kind of personal problems. Scientifically speaking, it can also be how to find a cure for cancer, or typically during the first wave, we were desperate to find a solution for COVID. So basically, problem solving contains three of the parameters. That stages is that, initial state is there, and then we have an operators. Operators are nothing but a movements or any effort you make towards achieving that goal, and obviously the final goal state. In the later point of time, you will see an intermediate problem state will be coming in between as a third state. I shall explain as and when we are catching up there. Hope you all knew about these puzzles, right? We used to play from our childhood. So can anybody say, who could see it's all self-explanatory. One, we can see the puzzle which we used to play setting up the animated items. Two, the maze, and three, the Sudoku, like which is completely an analytical one. And fourth, something, yeah, most important, the chess playing. There are two types of problems, well-defined and ill-defined. Well-defined problems are the given state of problem, the goal state of the problem, and the allowable operators or moves are each clearly specified. For example, I need to go from my home to our study center using the directions. So that's a very clear way. You know how to, the initial state. Initial state is, yes, very clear that this place is in this particular origin. Now, moves are something like, am I going by train or bus or flight, whatever the way, right? And then how am I going? Each and every step you make a level, that's called operators, allowable movements. Then finally, you reach the final stage of where you reach your study center. That's our goal state. Wherein in an ill-defined problem, the given state, goal state, and our operations are not clearly specified. In fact, either one of the thing will not be clearly be defined. Eradicating a dangerous disease, capture and punish Osama bin Laden, bring an end to international tourism, having we call it a terrorism office, having an interesting career, finding a perfect mate for life, all sorts of things. This fall under the ill-defined problem areas where you cannot state it very clearly. If you see very closely, like if you don't have a proper sleep, or when you don't have the food properly, when you are uncomfortable while sleeping, and that sleep continues, and you end up sleeping very less, that has a ripple effect on your next day life, next day morning life, correct? In terms of getting up late or getting late to office, or in terms of missing certain things which you are supposed to do it priorly. So many chaos happens with that, a miss in the sleep. So these kind of problems will not be defined very clearly, and anything pertains to a human mental related aspect of it or a behavioral aspect of it, we call it as an ill-defined problems predominantly. These are the types of well-defined problems. As per Greeno, what is it says? He picked up based on the psychological skills and knowledge needed to solve different problems. Arrangement is one type. It's very clear. You have been given a types of problems here. It's one among the problem is that you have been given a numbers. The effect is that you arrange that numbers on an ascending order or a descending order to make a sense of it. That's one category. Second one is about inducing structure. Inducing structure, like it leads to a relationship. For example, pineapple is to fruit as cabbage is to dash. In this analogy problem, the answer is vegetable. Requires people to figure out the relationship between pineapple and fruit and apply a similar relationship to cabbage. Hope you are getting it right. If we don't understand the relationship between pineapple and the fruit, we cannot find a relationship with cabbage with what? Correct? On that perspective, this inducing structure enables you to lead to the goal state at the earliest. The third is the transformation. Now I want everybody to go through this riddle, and I might need a solution. If you're already gone through the books, you can give the solution, in fact, not an issue. I'm just reading it. I want everybody's participation here. A familiar riddle describes a situation in which a man has to take his fox, his chicken, and his tub of grain across a river in a boat. The fox, chicken, and a grain across a river in a boat. The boat will hold only him and two of his possessions at any one point of time. He can't leave the fox and the chicken on the river bank by themselves because the fox will eat the chicken. And he can't leave the chicken with the grain because the chicken will eat the grain. He also can't take the fox and the chicken in the boat together because the fox will eat the chicken when he is occupied with rowing the boat. The same goes for the chicken and the grain. How will he get all the three across? Any answers?
May I try?
Yes, please. If you're already read it, you can ignore it.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, you shall try, please.
Yeah, first he'll take the chicken and the grain the other side,
Okay.
and then he'll bring back the chicken, and he will take fox and the chicken together to the other side.
Fantastic.
When he's, assuming when he's there, the fox won't eat the chicken, right?
No, that's not the
no, okay, let me try.
Okay.
Can I try? Okay, first he takes the grains and the fox to the other side. He leaves the fox there. He leaves the grains there. He brings the fox back. He picks up the chicken. He takes it to the other side, leaves the chicken there, brings the grains back. He then picks up the fox. Wait, no, I lost my train of thought.
Why can't he take the fox and grains and leave it there and come, no?
Hold on, all your answers are going to be wrong because the question is wrong.
Yeah, the question is kind of wrong.
He can take only one.
He take one apart from
he
himself.
can take only one, right?
Apart from himself, he can take only one.
Correct.
That is when the question makes sense.
Correct.
Okay, so if he can take only one, then he drops the the grains first.
Seema, you are coming.
No,
Seema, you're getting.
Seema, if you're taking the grains
Correct.
first, then
Fox
the
and
fox
chicken
will
are
eat
there.
the chicken.
Correct,
So what
correct.
he does is he takes the chicken, he leaves it on the other side, then he takes
chicken will
the
have to-
grains. No, the fox won't eat the grain, right?
Correct. True.
So he'll take the chicken first, drop it on the other side.
Correct.
He'll come back. He'll pick up the fox, take it to the other side.
Correct.
And he'll pick up the grains from that side and bring it back. And he takes the chicken to the other side. He'll come back with the he'll come back and then he'll pick up the grains and go. No, he'll bring the
Fox
fox
would have
back.
eaten the chicken by then.
No.
I'll-
He'll bring the
I'll
fox
tell-
back.
I'll tell.
Okay, fine. Go ahead. This is a little confusing.
Ah, yeah, first you take the chicken and leave it out the other side, okay? And then you come back, okay? Take the fox and you go and leave it that side, and bring the chicken back, and then you bring the grains and chicken back together.
You can't bring two things at the same
Yeah.
time, no?
Only one at a time, ah. So even
Yeah.
better, na, first take the
You're-
grains and leave it that
You
side.
can't bring
Everybody
both grain and chicken.
just to read
Correct.
the question, he can hold only him and two of his positions at any.
No. The question is wrong. The question is wrong. The question should say any one thing apart from himself.
No. It is two.
Oh.
One,
The-
it is, it is,
You can take two things.
guys, let me tell you, the question is very clear. He can hold along with him two of his possessions along with him. The boat will hold only him and two of his possessions.
Okay. So take the fox and the grains, put them that side, and then come back and take the chicken and go. Now, what is the problem?
Come,
That's it.
complete it.
So
You are
come
right,
back,
you're
take the
completed.
chicken and go back, and all three of them on one side. No.
Grains,
Fox
Can I give it a try?
and grain, you take it and put it on the other side. Okay.
yes, please.
Then he can come back and take the chicken and go to the other side. No, that's all. No. Then
Yes,
all three of
that's
them are that side.
Yeah, seems simple, no?
Huh.
Which problem is, no?
If we can do it, take two things at a time, it's so easy actually. Fox and grain को लेके जाके उस तरफ रख दो.
Correct.
Come back and take the chicken and go back, and all three together, then walk to home and we'll be done.
Okay. For the interest of time, I'm moving to the solution. Hope people read it now.
Why he has to take the grain back, yeah? When he can take two things at a time, fox is
Because
not
it is not the-
grain. Fox is not going to eat the grain. For what joy should I bring the grain back?
Someone might steal the grain.
No, really. Then I'll also say the fox can run away, the chicken can fly away.
Exactly. The
So there
chicken
is
can
no
fly
point
away.
bringing the grain back. Let the
Chicken
fox
can
eat the
fly
grain.
away.
Let him
Okay.
take responsibility and take care of the grains.
Perfectly, Sunita. So guys, just to summarize what you are doing all together is that you are making a series of changes to achieve a specific goal. And this process is called transformation. Here, so we covered arrangement, we covered inducing structure where we talk about relationship. Third one is about the transformation. As I was informed, as I was telling you earlier, ill-defined problems lack all or most of the information required to reach a solution. They at least leave one of the three elements, initial state or operators or a goal state, not clearly specified. These are the characteristics of difficult problems. I'm just going to rush faster so that you can sail along with me. Intransparency, lack of clarity of the situation, commencement opacity, confusion regarding how to start stating the problem itself, continuation opacity, continuing confusion in regard to the problem as there is no clarity at all. Polytely, the problem has multiple goals, and so reaching and selecting a particular goal is difficult. Inexpressiveness, inability to express the problem clearly. Opposition, transience. The problem keeps changing. It's keep evolving it. Like in a maze, you know the set of places where you need to go and reach. But what if if you have anybody noticed, if you have seen Jumanji Part 2, all right, they used to try to move from one mountain to other mountain where the monkeys come in between and then they distract them. So the path is completely different way. When they are looking at the path, it was very clear. But by the time when they travel along the path, there is a different path comes in coincidences together, and there is some blocks also in between the blocks. So they have to keep evolving their interstate situations to arrive at the solution. So this we call it as a continuity or like the transience part we call it as. The problems keep changing to reach to the goal. Complexity, the problem is in large number of items, too many interrelationship and decisions. This predominantly happens in a family-based situations. I am not going in depth of it. Enumerability, it is not possible to list it or quantify it. Connectivity, there are hierarchy of problems in relation to relationship, communication, and allocation. Heterogeneity, the problem is not homogeneous and so difficult to handle. Not a similar one, completely different one. Dynamics, time considerations. Temporal constraints are those limitations to time factor, as within the time period we need to complete that kind of constraints. Temporal sensitivity, the problem is influenced and affected by time factor, meaning what is an effect of whatever the time duration you are keeping it, that has a ripple effect on the problem itself. That's a temporal sensitivity. Phase effects, there are changes in different phases of the problem, and these affect the problem from being solved. The dynamic unpredictability, the problem is complex and consists of high degree of unpredictability. Moving out of the characteristics now. Nature of problem solving, we are categorizing into 4 major things. The researchers who trace participants, first and foremost, they all started up with saying, we can identify problem solving step one by one, step by step, and so on. Beginning with the early experimental work of the Gestalists in Germany and continuing through 1960s and early 1970s, research on problem solving was typically conducted in relatively simple laboratory tasks. In these tasks, they had clearly defined optimal solutions which were solvable within a relatively short time frame. And researchers could trace participants' problem solving steps, as I was mentioned. The researchers made the underlying assumptions that simple tasks such as the Tower of Hanoi. Tower of Hanoi is an example of what I mentioned here. Capture the main properties of real world problems. So they were started interrelating. If anybody could solve the problem of Tower of Hanoi, we can solve the problem of real world issues. So that's what their assumption started up with. And that the cognitive processes underlying participants' attempts to solve simple problems were representative of the processes engaged in when solving real world problems too. Thus, researchers use simple problems for reasons of only for the reasons of convenience. Simple laboratory-based tasks can be useful in expliciting the steps of logic and reasoning that underline problem solving. However, they omit the complexity and emotional valence of real-world problems. In clinical psychology, researchers have focused on the role of emotions in problem solving, demonstrating that poor emotional control can disrupt focus on the target task and impede problem resolution. Human problem solving consists of 2 related processes: problem orientation and problem solving skills itself. If while problem orientation deals with the motivational, attitudinal, affective approach to problematic situation, that means when you are putting all your motivation aspect of it and you are putting your thoughts all together and how are you going to address to the particular problem, we call it as a problem orientation. The problem solving skills deals with the actual cognitive behavioral steps. If cognitive skills are successfully implemented, it will lead to effective problem resolution. Problem solving occurs when an organism or an artificial intelligence system needs to move from a given state to a desired goal state. Problem solving is one of the many forms that thinking or cognition may take. It is a very major cognitive behavior. According to Barron 2001, problem solving involves efforts to develop or choose among various responses in order to attain desired goals. As for Whiting and Williams 1984 defined problem solving as the use of thought processes to overcome obstacles and work towards goals. The overall, when we are going to cover on the stages, these 2 definitions will be well expressed in those stages. First, the initial state. How the starting conditions are defined. operators, moves or operations to move from one state to another. Intermediate problem states. This is what the third stage, which I've included as part of the book itself. Any states that are generated by applying an operator to a state on the way to final goal. That means any movement you make in between to achieving that indefinite goal, we call it as an intermediate problem states. The goal state is the final state, or goal conditions are described. The internal representation or mental mode of these 4 states of problem is called problem space, meaning where all the 4 stages comes in that one particular time, we call it as a problem space. This problem space varies from one individual to another. It must be kept in mind that each individual problem space is unique and depends also on the nature of the problem. The initial state of a problem is critical to problem solving, and some problems' initial state may lead to efficient problem solving, while another may end up in high complexity. There are few stages, strategies, which we all would have undergone in our day-to-day life, be it in an organization or in the company. Predominantly, they keep pushing us for some activity or training programs, right? Like a problem solving strategies is one of the things. What are the things that fall under problem solving strategies is that group problem solving, management problem solving activities, teaching problem solving skills, art problem solving. So this is the strategies. And there is also creative problem solving. There are skill sets that they teach, basically. Problem solving approach, elementary problem solving worksheets, and lesson plans. These are the few of the examples of creative problem solving. So basically, in this slide, you need to understand these 4 stages: initial, operators, intermediate problem states, and the goal state. These are the thinking that are involved in the problem solving. According to Wedmer, effective problem solving requires productive thinking, being sensitive and open to structural requirements, going beyond the knowledge learned from previous problems solving tasks. For productive thinking, there is a need to have a grasp of the general principles. We call it as a rules, maybe, that apply in the particular problem situation. Since individuals do have a tendency to reproduce thinking appropriate for other situation. For example, the matrix remains the same, but the approach towards a Sudoku as well as the matrix problems always varies differently. And when you're using the arrangement order, be it numerical or maybe in terms of a word basis, we get to connect differently and try to approach to our problem in a differently. They need to think, for example, since the individuals do have a tendency to reproduce thinking appropriate for other solution, they need to think beyond that solution and look for unique solutions. It is important to keep in mind the structure of the problem without which solution may not come about. Moving towards the kind of thinking processes. So in this overall, Werthmer, he says about point 1, a productive thinking is what? One which will lead to the principles, understanding of the principles, leading something to achieve to those through the rules and principles, we fall under productive thinking. Being very structured requirements is really required. A methodical way of putting it across, reach towards the goal is really required. Third point is about go beyond the boundary in thinking on a lateral way to arrive at the solution without missing the structural elements of it. That's the overall conclusion of it. The kind of thinking processes are analytical and synthetic. There is nothing more in solution than in the premise. For example, if the problem is a simple question like how many doors are there in your house, then the answer is simple counting of the doors and adding it up. There can be no other answer, and there can also be no other solution. Correct? It's very critical. That's what we we say very clearly it's an analytical one. It has one answer and one solution, and your approach to that. In contrast, synthetic thinking does not contain the conclusion in the premise itself, because the solution is not needed in the construction of the mental object. For example, to be very clear, we know that 2 is a divisor of 4, and 4 is a divisor of 8, and 2 is also a divisor of 8. In general, it is true that a divisor of a number is a divisor of that number in, in other words, one is synthesizing that available information and facts to derive new solution. This is also termed as developing insight. Right? Newell is one of the most influential cognitive psychologists who made computer simulation approach in the study of problem solving. From this model, one will find answers to a problem by inspecting that model itself. We are talking about the mental models here. To do this, one writes parts of the problem mentally on the model. Once the model has been constructed, one can read the result of what has been written. For example, yesterday, I posted something, an illumination based a picture, correct? And immediately, as I have also given an answer, if you are bit closer to the picture, you cannot arrive at the answer. Once you open that picture and later if you see, then you can see the solution out of it. So what is that it tells about it? You create a mental model of what would be the solution, and you have a mental picture about it, how to go about it, and you also have a gut feeling about it. Okay, this is what my overall knowledge level through which I'm going to arrive at this particular solution, and that's how you justify upon yourself how well you arrive at the problem using your own mental model. One is synthesizing the available information and facts to derive new solution. We are talking about development insights. Now we are touching towards moving from development insights toward this place. There are 2 types of solutions to problems, and these are insightful and solution without involving insight. For example, arithmetic and algebraic problem falls into the category of problem solved without insight. In this, the subject themselves must be able to distinguish between 2 types of solutions. As a subject solved, here the subject we're talking about were a problem solver. As a subject solves a non-insight problem, they should be able to tell that they are getting closer to the solution. For a non-insight problem, subjects generally have a greater feeling of warmth, so they get closer and closer to the solution. It's a kind of an adrenaline feel, right? You're about to get into the answer and you will be very closely sitting at the edge of the chair to come into the conclusion. So that's a kind of a feel you will always have when you are working towards a non-insight problems. This is because non-insight problems are solved by step, with each step the subject gets closer to the solution and thus warmer in each step. As for insight problems, there is no gradual approach to the solution, and so subjects do not feel warmer until the solution actually appears. Feeling of knowing and feeling of warmth reflects judgments that subjects make about their own knowledge. Such judgments are examples of metacognition. Metacognition refers to what one knows about the technique of how accurately one can assess one's own cognitive processes. I remember we come across this particular topic earlier. Just reiterating on that, it is basically how well you assess yourself, your own cognitive skills, cognitive processes. It has been shown that people's metacognitive assessments of their performance on non-set problems are quite accurate, wherein assessments of the performance on insight problems are not accurate, because insight is not something that can be planned. An insight is something that happened to the person, not something that a person decides to have. In insight solution, the problem is solved by the sudden illumination characteristics of insight. A very classic example is that I keep telling it in various forum. It's about Marie Curie, the radium, who has invented the radium basically. So it's all went like she has been very methodical. She worked day and night, and she has gone through the in and out of it. And then finally, she lost her patience and went her to nap. It's a kind of a tired nap. And by next day when she gets up, the formula is there in her desk. It's not somebody else have written it. She itself have written it. That means it's something like your overall efforts, whatever the knowledge you're putting on, lot of your efforts onto that. And eventually, then insight triggers all to that to give that particular solution out of it. The ability to discover what is essential about situation is important, as well as the ability to remember information that is relevant to the problem. So to add to this point, another aspect of insight in that source of difficulty in some insight problem is inability to see that something you already know is needed for the solution. As a Gestalt psychologist, one of them has observed, people are generally not efficient at realizing that a new problem can be solved with information already at their disposal. This ability is called sagacity. Sagacity differs from learning. Okay, sagacity, it tells about ability to remember information that is relevant to the problem. Sagacity differs from learning in that it involves a sensitivity to detail, a discernment of what is important in a situation. Sagacity is the ability to see into the situation and to discriminate the important aspects of it. I will add on with that the example of a format itself. The format in which the information is presented makes a difference in insightful problem solving. That is, one can give the information in a puzzle format or in a declarative format. The information given in the puzzle format leads the subject to discriminate the relevant information better than when the information is in declarative format. This is so because the puzzle format leads the subject to process the relevant information in a way that makes it accessible for later use. Now, we are touching the concept of sagacity in this puzzle format element. On the other hand, the declarative format leads to the acquisition of the relevant information, but in a way that makes it possible for the person to see its relevance for subsequent problem solving. But not leaving out with that declarative format will be useful for ready reckoner for the easy references for the future task. I have one thing to say, like there's a very famous, one of the interpretation which they have given in the book. I'll just highlight this point. It is quite interesting to see how the interpretation makes differences and how the problem solver utilizes his own metacognition to come out with the solution. For example, select a word that can be interpreted in a different ways. For example, the word lake can refer to a frozen or unfrozen body of water. This is a statement. The word lake can refer to a frozen or unfrozen body of water. Most people interpret the word to refer to an unfrozen body of water, because we all seen as a lake as an water that is running, the water in a stagnant place, correct? We never seen something called, we never imagined something like a frozen lake, right? So the statement, it says like what we are talking about is a frozen or unfrozen body of water. So how are you going to come out of that or given an approach on this problem? A riddle can be constructed by requiring the problem solver to come up with the less accessible meaning in order to make sense of what is being described. If the subject is presented with a clue that a stone is rested on the surface of the lake for 3 months, after which it sank to the bottom some 10 meters below. This would provide the solution that lake here refers to the frozen one for 3 months and then running water later afterwards. You are getting where are we realizing, right? It's about you are putting down your interpretation in such a way, like a very simple example. In mathematics, we use X, right? X and Y. We give the notion or a variables in the particular X and we arrive at the solution, and finally we give value to the particular X which we are defined, which is basically an undefined problem which we put it as an X, right? So similar way, we identify somewhere other the interpretation and create and make our own problem quite simpler so that it sounds very easy and lighter to understand it on a clear note. To sum up, we have completed the overall this part of it. We have touched upon the important part of thinking processes, well-defined or ill-defined problems, characteristics of different difficult problem, stages or initial operators, intermediate problem state, goal state, thinking, analytical thinking, and synthetic thinking problem solving. Solving can be done either with or without insight and utilizes analytical synthetic thinking along with metacognition. You can stop. I can stop sharing, please.
Very nice, Uma Shankar. Of problem solving